then move this over. Oh, oh. Okay. Yes, we're here. Hello, everybody. It's time for the weekly mandala coloring. This week I am, so you can see, here's the thing, there's the lapse. Interesting, right? This week I am here with my friend Hazel Tart, who's going to be coloring with me. We're going to color the same one. I, once again, am going to be pulling in these little vintage erasable plastic markers. I felt like they were okay last time, but we're going to keep going with them. And then next week I'll probably go back to my regular colored pencils. But so this week we have chosen, there was some that we liked that had cats on them, but we're going to go with these ones instead. We're doing this one, which is an interesting one. It's a mandala, of course, circular. It is symmetrical bilateral, I guess we'll say. And one of my favorite things about this one is that I didn't realize it until we were printing it. It's very imperfect. This is one that was hand drawn, it looks like. Oh, let me see. There we go. So it's a very imperfect mandala. There's some mistakes here, but as I like to point out, there's no such thing as mistakes. There's just ways that we change the things that we normally do. But yeah, this is a little bit of a rougher one. So we'll go. So as I always like to point out, when coloring a mandala, you just color it as it strikes you at that moment. There's no right or wrong. If there's a thing that happens and you're not necessarily wild about it, if you're doing this at home, you could always stop or get a new one. If you would rather just embrace it, go with it. No right or wrong. Okay, so this is fun. I've never done this with another person on Twitch.
I'm honored.
So
it's so doing this like light pulsing thing, is that?
Yeah, I think that is unfortunate. I don't know what the pulsing is. I think it's only, there we go. I think it's when there's not anything on the screen.
Okay.
So I think we're okay now.
We'll just keep our hands on the screen all the time.
Yes. Sorry if that was upsetting to anybody who was watching. Oh, it's doing it occasionally. We'll see. I think we should be okay. Okay. So let's color. So this is going to be fun because I'm going to try to not look at what you're doing. And we'll go from there. Okay. No, it's doing the pulsing again.
I'm wondering if it's the light.
Maybe.
Is that super bright light? Does this help?
We'll see. If you're watching and the pulsing starts, just let us know so we can try to fix it, because it's doing a little bit of pulsing on our screen, but it's hard to see if it's doing it on the stream at home. So you let us know, because I definitely don't want to trigger anybody with light sensitivity. Let's see. Yeah, okay, good. The colors are showing up pretty well. And as always, if you decide to color along, I put this on my Twitter, and Hazel also put it on Twitter as well, and on our Instagrams, so you can find the mandala. If you do print it at home and color along, I'd love to see what yours looks like, so feel free to tweet that out at us.
Yes, please.
Oh, it's fun to not look at yours. And this is going to be your first time working with this medium.
Yes.
They're interesting.
They are. They're kind of crayons, they're kind of not.
Exactly. They're interesting. You can get some shading with them, which was my main concern.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't call them markers.
Yeah, I feel like the title of them is a
little misleading.
It's a little misleading, a little bit of a misnomer, but they're interesting.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable feel.
Yes, it does have a good feel to them. They feel nice in the hand.
Mm.
Oh. I made my first mistake that's not really a mistake of the night.
I love a good not mistake.
Well, I started coloring a thing and then I realized that's
wasn't
not
what you wanted
what
to
I
color.
wanted.
That's
Sometimes the mandala design,
Yeah.
you don't really look at it fully and you don't see how things map out. So, you just go with it then.
Absolutely.
What I think I'm gonna do. And that's what this is all about. I mean, the art therapy behind it is, unexpected. What do you do when it's unexpected? And learning to embrace it. And all kinds of stuff. But,
Amen to all of that.
but sometimes it's just, I didn't think ahead. I didn't look. And this is what I have to deal with now. And that is also part of it.
It's just part of the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
You end up somewhere that you weren't expecting.
Exactly.
That's a surprise.
And that is so much of it. The one I did last week, I miscalculated when I was coloring, and I meant to have it be a thing that was every other, and then I skipped one, and then I ended up making a rainbow, and it was really pretty. So it ended up being nice anyway.
Love that.
So. I think the flashing is done. So I think we're okay.
Now that we have enough coloring on the page,
exactly.
It has something to focus on.
It's so interesting to feel the difference because this is like a hand-drawn one where there's so much space. It's like so much more space in some of the sections.
Yeah, there's a lot of space in some of these.
Yeah, because it's like slightly uneven. So. And a thing I always like to point out with this too, with the coloring, if you're coloring along at home, is that there's nothing wrong with leaving sections uncolored. A lot of people feel pressure that they have to color all of it, and that you can make a specific choice to not color something, and that is just as valid. And yeah, and then you can make the decision and then go back and change it too. That's fine.
to not look over yours.
I know, it's tricky.
It's like staring intently at mine.
Oh man, had we planned it out more, we could put a little
Like
wall,
a divider
little
wall.
divider. That'd be really cool because then the viewer would be the only one who would get to see
Oh.
the two at the same time. Ooh.
Rolling crayons.
Rolly crayons. Okay, let's get this back in there.
They're wax markers, not
The wax. Oh,
crayons.
I'm sorry. Rolly wax markers. Okay. There's this feeling I have it when I use my color pencils, where you are coloring with a side, and so it ends up getting really flat, and then when you turn it over, and it's so
really sharp
crisp.
all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
nice feeling.
It's like, ooh, this is fresh.
Exactly. You didn't even sharpen it; it just naturally occurred. That's some good synchronized.
Yes. I was like, I'm gonna hit the camera if I try to color that.
Yeah. There's a whole art therapy analysis behind whether or not you color around or you turn the page.
Interesting.
So I typically don't go too much into the art therapy because I don't want people to feel self-conscious while coloring. But if you, this was a circumstance where you had to because like you'd hit the camera if you didn't do it, right? But the general idea is that if you turn it yourself, it's showing that you feel in control. But if you like color around it and go out of your way to do it, it's like it can show like submissiveness or feeling like you're caught up and something's controlling you rather than you being in control. Yes, it's a thing.
Interesting.
But with this time, sometimes it's you just need to do it because
Yeah.
you're going to be out of frame.
There is a need.
You're going to hit a camera.
There is a need.
This is interesting. I feel like of the ones I've colored, this has been the closest to like actual mandala. Because a lot of mine, the ones I've been doing lately, have really focused on like the spookiness.
Oh, okay.
And less on the
like the imagery and less the symmetry.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's nice to have ones where it's just shapes again.
Yeah, I feel like when you have shapes over more specific imagery, it helps you to be less focused on it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's you have less meaning to subscribe to the shapes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I used to color in like Harry Potter coloring books and like My Little Pony coloring books, but I was so focused on getting the colors right and color matching it to like what it quote unquote should be in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I switched to this one that I got at like a craft store, and it was super complex, really detailed scenery, but all just like really like no context for it. So like I was able to focus on like the little tiny details.
Yeah, yeah. And that's nice. And that's kind of some of the purpose behind mandala coloring, is that a lot of times they're just ambiguous shapes. They're, repetitive shapes. So you don't have to feel pressure to color it anything specific.
Which I love.
So it just allows for more creative freedom. Because it's interesting, even when it's just like, this is a coloring page, like, we can do whatever we want with these when we're done with them. But it's like when I was coloring one last week or 2 weeks ago, I forget when it was, but I was coloring, and it was like bats, and I was like, I'm not gonna color them this, I'm not gonna color them just black. And even though I was doing it, I still felt like I was wrong.
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting how these preconceived notions. It's like, I can have a green bat, I can have a pink bat. Why not? You can have it whatever color you want. It's your coloring sheet. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I'm definitely falling into like a spooky color palette. I think it's also just because I've been watching a lot of spooky things lately.
Yeah.
It's like that's where my color palette is at the moment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the first one I did, my colors, I was really going with just whatever spoke to me in the moment, which is typically how I suggest people do mandala coloring. And my colors were so off what I normally do. My colors tonight are actually more similar to the typical ones I'm drawn to. But yeah, this first one, it was like browns and beiges and like all these really, and it was really reflective of the Midwest, which I thought was really interesting because I just moved to Colorado.
That's right.
So it was like, wow, these colors really match where I am in life. So it was, it was a fascinating kind of thing. And this is an interesting one because it is like a bilateral as opposed to a mirror symmetry. It does offer you the choice to break up the shapes and the colors into different ways. I think it's always really interesting when a color like calls to you.
Yeah.
And then like also like, why does that call to me? Why do I feel like this needs to be this color?
Yes.
Which is really interesting. Especially when, go ahead.
And like the number of times that, at least for me, where I intentionally don't pick a color because I'm like, that's what I want to go for. And so I force myself to take one that I'm not as drawn to, just to mix it up.
Yeah, that's a good like creative challenge. I'm like just catching some of the colors of yours out of my peripheral, and I'm so excited.
I just caught myself thinking, like, what if we don't finish at the same time?
I know.
What if one person finishes way before the other person? Then what happens?
I know. What happens then?
Then you get to sit and watch me.
Oh, I love these regular edges.
Mm.
They're so fun. I have a feeling the person who drew this had a fun time drawing it.
Yes. Yeah, I can't even imagine freehanding
a mandala. Yeah. Got some spooky sounds going on outside.
Right? I don't know what's happening with them. I feel like I broke the seal on rotating, and now I'm just rotating all the time.
That's good though. You were in control then.
Yes.
It's so interesting too that it's like when you get really immersed in it, the fact that like my memory lapses from like what I was literally just doing like 2 minutes ago on the other side of the mandala. I was like, what did I do again? Yeah, and you have to like look back and I see it because you just become so focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, I like the piece right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly, which is part of it. Letting yourself just get really immersed in a thing.
Yeah, the pattern that initially jumped out to me, it kind of like morphed as I worked my way out, and then by the time I got back to the middle, I didn't even realize that my pattern had changed.
Oh, that's really
cool. And then I was
cool.
like, oh, okay. So this is what we're doing instead.
That's really cool. That's interesting that you started middle and went out.
Mm-hmm.
As did I.
And then I worked my way back in.
Oh. Oof. Excited about this. Excited.
And I want... Having fun.
I am. it's like I've colored in all the spaces. Now I'm just going back and seeing what I want to darken or what I want to lightly change the shade of. It's like little tweaks. It's interesting too that the person who drew this, the line density is thicker in the middle than it is on the outside for some of it. At least I think so. That's It's hard to tell though because it might just have been the way I colored it.
Yeah.
That's giving it that effect, but that's what it feels like to me.
What I love is that you can tell by the pumpkins that there was no copy and pasting.
Yeah.
Like there was no I drew out one pumpkin and then I just clone tool it. Like it's each one of them is a little different.
Also, that one thing I do like about these, whatever they're calling them, markers, somethings, is that they do well when you color over another one. They do a good blend. They do blend well.
Always a commendable trait.
Oh, the little hums. And I'm so pleased with the thing.
I was just noticing that the moment that pattern changed for me was also, it started in that moment when I said I want to go for this color, but I want to keep it random, so I'm going to intentionally pick this color that's not speaking to me. And that was when the pattern changed.
Interesting.
I was like, when did that? Oh yeah. So when I picked that lime green. Last color.
You think you're all done?
I think so.
I'm almost done. A little bit more shading.
I didn't do as much shading as I expected myself to do. I started to do it, and I was like, I'm not feeling that.
Okay, there we go.
These are so fun.
They're
so different.
They're like ridiculous. I just want to make sure yours is, yeah, you're, oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah. Boop. Look at that.
Oh
Wow. They're really different.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going very like Halloween, and then I was like, no, stop feeling like you need to do a color palette. So I grabbed the lime green, and then it turned into silver and gold and black and brown.
That's so
and
cool.
Pink.
Yeah.
Oh, yours is so pretty.
Yeah, this is so much more similar to what my color palette used to be. When I red colored, it was always really purples, greens, blues. They were kind of like my shades. And yeah, I just got away from them for a while. And so this is the first one that I feel like really back to where I feel like it used to be.
Yeah, and I love the shading, like the different gradients that you did. It adds a lot of dimension to those like large chunks of space.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's the decision to do a dark outside was a really...
Yes, it made it pop. I love that.
And it's like, it was interesting since we both started inside and kind of moved out.
Yeah.
The art therapy thing behind that is that if you color outside in, it's that you need containment. So you're setting a boundary to start yourself, and then you can like feel comfortable within a boundary. But if you're kind of going inside out, the idea is that like you're looking for growth, you're looking for expansion. You want to like grow from the out, like grow and expand.
Now, is it different if you grow outward and then back in?
I guess that you could say that like it could be part of it is that like you're looking for expense, but then like you want something. Because like I said, having a dark, that's one of the reasons I bring it up, is that having this dark outside was like I was kind of going really wild with my color palette here and like doing all these different shades and all this blending and stuff like that. And I'm so like, now I just want like a defined boundary for myself to say like this is when it stops. Yeah. Because sometimes it can get a bit much, and then you're like, and then I still color outside of the lines. And then
I definitely thought about that for a moment. I was like, do I want to color the entire page? No.
Like, and then I color outside.
That's unneeded.
Color on the table. But yeah, it's like, it's good like as a boundary setting for myself to do it. So I'm glad you did purple pumpkins.
Yeah, little purple pumpkins. Yeah, I was like, I want the pumpkins to be pastel. And then I did a nice like dark tones to really offset that. Yeah, I never really use like earthy muted tones ever.
Yeah, it was interesting that today was the day where you were like challenging and like bringing it in.
I was like, all right, let's just throw some gold in there.
Yeah, and with mine was because I started with like these shades here, and then I brought this in. This is when we were having the conversation about like why you choose a color, like why a color speaks to you, and it was like green was speaking to me at this point and being like, we're not on this, bring us in here. And it's like it changed a lot, because before this it was like all these cool tones and it was really like feeling that kind of like coldness, and then this really like brought it back. Yeah, this made it, I think, had I stayed within this color palette, it would have been more Halloween, and this made it more fall.
Yes, yeah, I like that.
Because it's like kind of like a harvest. Yeah, because then they started taking on like leaves for me, and I was like, oh.
I love it.
And I love it. This is this color I saw. When your color, I was just like, because I think you had that crayon over there for a while, because it's like, ooh, the lime
You're
green.
like, I want that
I forgot about the lime green, so I found it. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, that is this. This is the mandala coloring. So once again, if you watch, whether it's here on Twitch or you watch it on YouTube and you want to color along and show us what you did, we'd love to see it, because we have two I'm just like looking at these two right here, like two very different depictions of the same design. So love to see what you do. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye.